the three words that are almost never spoken together. An all-new Tamiya. This is the BBX. What's going on, everyone? Today I've got the newest Tamiya on the bench. This is the BBX on the BB01 chassis set. And as far as I know, pretty much everything on this is new. There's probably some parts trees that are used on other, vehicles that carried over, probably shock parts and things like that. But for the most part, I believe that this thing is all new. And I had a lot of fun putting this together. Been in a super build crunch lately and got to step back and kind of go to something like this. Was just a great experience, something that I really enjoyed. Tamiya kits I've built a ton in the past, and this feels very familiar in many ways. Lots of things that are done in a very Tamiya style, but overall, just the build was fantastic. Worked on this over a couple of nights. Myself and my father-in-law actually just kind of dove in and tinkered away at it a few hours a night for a couple of nights, and then he also did the paint for me. So he knocked out the paint, all the decal work, everything. This is pretty much 100% complete, other than I haven't put the window nets in yet. It comes with some window nets and some templates that you trim out to fill those side windows there. It's a nice fine mesh. It looks really good and really scaled. But beyond that, this is pretty much built box stock. A couple of things: it doesn't include an ESC or a motor or servo. A lot of times you get a motor and an ESC with these. This one didn't have any of that. So I threw in a very standard Hobbywing 1060, and I threw in a Holmes Trailmaster Sport motor in the back. This is actually a 550 can, which clears just fine, in case you were wondering. As far as the servo, I used a Futaba servo. You will need a shorty servo for this, so don't try and jam a full-size servo in there. It will be too tall. A couple of things that are non-Tamiya is that most of the hardware on this kit is hex head hardware. Very nice. It's not 100% hex. There's still a number of very small Phillips screws, like the screws that hold on the body panels, and just here and there you'll run into a couple of JIS head screws. But in general, this is a hex head hardware kit, which was a lovely change and something that I absolutely enjoyed the update on. Also, I don't think I ran into a single bushing. Everything in this kit is also bearings. So while things did feel very Tamiya, a lot of things felt very un-Tamiya-like at the same time. Now, overall, the layout of this is a two-wheel drive buggy like you maybe have seen many, many times. It's got a standard independent front suspension with a double A-arm style. Now, I did have some of the upgrades sent to me when this kit came from Tamiya, including these front knuckles. I threw those on there while we were at it. And I also have some servo mounts inside that are alloy, as well as there is some rear axle shafts. But the rear axle shafts, I believe, were basically the exact same as the stock ones, but they were listed as hop-up parts. I don't know. I used them regardless, but I'm pretty sure they were the exact same as the factory ones that I had. So while that front suspension is very familiar IFS, the rear suspension is much cooler. It's a trailing arm rear suspension, so the trailing arm comes and it mounts kind of up here in the chassis. Goes back and it's got some radius links here in the back that help support it and keep it in place. The shocks mount to those trailing arms mid-path here, then they mount high up mid on the cage. You've probably seen suspension like this on other vehicles before. I believe it comes on a couple of other Tamiyas as well. But it was just a super fun build. It went together well. It wasn't finicky to assemble. It just was nice. It was a fun, solid build throughout. I absolutely love the style that they went after with the very traditional old dune buggy style, and to compare it to something else that you may be familiar with, something like the old Grasshopper, the one that's been around, the one that you've probably owned or owned first in your hobby career. If you want to start comparing the size of the BBX, it's a good measure to it because the BBX is much larger. If you line it up, the wheelbase is over an inch longer overall. The width is about an inch wider also, and then the size of the tires is significantly larger, both front and rear. You can see those front tires are kind of dwarfed by the BBX tires, and you can see those rear tires probably at least a ½ inch taller also. So this is just a much larger buggy. To access everything inside here, you do have to remove the upper section of this bodywork, and it's held on there just with Velcro. So you'll peel off the Velcro. Pull that out, and that is the top section of the bodywork. It of course is Lexan, not a hard body, but the side bodywork stays in place, and that's held on with some very tiny screws all the way around. But underneath of that, that's how you access where the battery goes. Now to get to that battery, there's a little aluminum rod here. You remove a body clip, and then you'll pull this rod out of the side. So that goes there, or comes out. And then you can lift up this cover, which has the driver figure and the receiver box attached to it as well. But that kind of pivots up a little bit to give you access to slide your battery back into the battery compartment. Not a terribly convenient method, but in the name of style and the way Tamiya does things, it just works. Once you've inserted the battery, of course, you'll just replace that aluminum rod through that interior tray. And then lastly, replace this body clip. We talked about electronics a little bit at the beginning. I'm using a Futaba 9570 SV stubby servo. That I've got on there. I didn't use the servo saver. I actually have just a regular rigid, roughly 20mm, 24mm servo horn. So that handles the steering on this. Nice and quick. Overkill for, just kind of a fun basher buggy. And if you don't have a stubby servo, I know that EcoPower has like a 130T, I believe. That's an inexpensive servo that would be well suited for a buggy like this. Going through the build of this kit, there was nothing all that difficult, just step by step, very traditional Tamiya instructions. Of course, the amazing artwork that they put on the outside of all of their manuals. And the manual itself is pretty lengthy, around 30 pages of total instructions. This does include a ball diff in that rear transmission. The transmission on this felt more like a race buggy than a typical Tamiya, to me at least. When building this, I also did use the upgraded top shaft and slipper setup. It's got a machined gear into the top shaft. It comes with some nice machined aluminum slipper discs. Beyond that, it uses the same slipper gear and pads that the stock unit used. So if you're looking for that, those will be available at the time that this is released, I believe. The shocks on this were some of the most enjoyable Tamiya shocks that I've built. They do have machined aluminum body. They have a very simple to assemble lower cartridge. Shock shafts, springs, keepers, preload adjusters, those are all very standard to me. It uses the standard style of the non-threaded shock body. So you have this preload adjuster that you just move to the position and tighten the screw down. Threaded bodies are always a little bit nicer to have, but these do the job. One thing that was interesting is on these caps, I'm not sure if this is a thing that's happened on other Tamiyas or not, it is a bleeder screw cap to the shocks. However, you have to drill your own cross hole so that bleeder screw will function. It instructs you to drill a 1mm hole from the center of the cap on the bottom side up into the passageway for that bleeder screw. I don't know that I've ever ran into that on any shock or any RC ever, but I used a small pin vise with a 1mm drill bit and just did it by hand. Functioned just fine. It wasn't difficult. It was just something that I almost overlooked in the instructions because it wouldn't have been something I even considered doing, but not a big deal. It's just something that if you don't have a very small drill bit on hand, you may not get that functionality until you go find one. You will, of course, have to glue these tires onto the wheels yourself. Many Tamiya kits don't even tell you about gluing. They're just like, it's fine without it. But with the size of this buggy, you're definitely going to need to glue those. They do include foams also. stuff the foams in there. They're a little oversized, but they do give the tire a nice amount of support. Good addition to run those versus trying to run these tires without some additional inner foam support. Now, as you can tell by the minty fresh appearance of this BBX, I haven't ran this yet. We actually just finished it up tonight, and you know, I get to stare at it a little bit longer before I take it out and see exactly how it drives. But while I don't expect it to be a race buggy, I still think that it's going to be a good bit of fun in the, you know, some loose dirt, nothing too crazy. Not going to take it to a track or anything like that. Just going to take it out and have some fun on the fields or ball fields around here. But I think that this is an absolute amazing addition to the Tamiya line. I'm so happy to see a new platform, and of course also like a little bit honored to get a new release from Tamiya. Tamiya was the very first hobby grade RC that I owned, which was the TXT1, and to be able to be a part of a release of a new product from them, you know, it's pretty special. With that, I want to thank Tamiya for the opportunity to build the new BBX. I really enjoyed it. If you in any way enjoy building Tamiya kits, this is one of the most enjoyable ones that I've built yet. It's just, you know, a little bit newer, a little nicer hardware, bearings are included, all the little things. It's just such a great kit. It was a nice experience, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'd be interested to hear what Tamiya kits or how many Tamiya kits you've built in the past, because this one definitely taking the #1 spot for me. It's just that good. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the new BBX. I definitely enjoyed seeing it come together on my bench. As always, I appreciate all of you for stopping and watching the video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. With that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.